Hello and welcome to the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. If you moved abroad following your significant other and are looking to create a fulfilled life on your terms there, this is the place to be. I'm your host, Camilla Quintana, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you and to inspire you to create the kind of life abroad you truly deserve. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. Today, I want to talk about something really practical and relevant to all of our expat lives, and it's about how to make friends and build a network abroad. And I feel like this is not only important for us personally. I mean, of course, we all want to have some friends and someone to confide in and their company. It's also important for us professionally because a lot of times when it comes to thinking about applying for new jobs, looking for new jobs, when it comes to embarking on a new professional endeavor or starting your own business maybe, what holds us back is that we lack a network. And without contacts, without a community to fall back on, it's so much harder and it limits our choices both professionally and personally. So let's talk about this. I want to share my 7 favorite tips with you today to connect and make friends abroad. And let me tell you, I've started over in a new country or city or environment many times. I've also returned home in between longer periods abroad. And so I know that both scenarios can be challenging when it comes to making friends and being integrated in a community. And of course, we all look for meaningful connections, which are harder to find and sometimes take a longer time to blossom. This will also depend a little bit on the culture of your host and of your home country. And I just want to make a quick mention of this because I feel like this conversation sometimes gets lost or overlooked. And yet, cultural differences are real. They do condition us as well as they condition the locals that we interact with. To be honest, when I was younger, I used to think that cultural conditioning didn't really exist, or that was for like extreme hardliners, and that the rest of us were just, cultural hybrids. But as I get older, I do see how even my cultural conditioning or my family's conditioning, it does shape me in a way. It does shape the way I see certain things. It shapes the way I react to certain things. And I compare that with my husband, who's Spanish and has a different conditioning, definitely. So I just see this play out in my day-to-day life. And I don't know about you, but I just think that culture does influence our values, our priorities, our behavior, and it certainly influences the way that we approach other people and the way that we like to be approached. On the other hand, though, while some cultures will seem more open and welcoming and friendly to you than others, this doesn't necessarily say anything about the quality of friendships that you'll make there. So even if we don't understand the ways of the locals, let's refrain from labeling one approach as better or worse. Because when we do that, we shut off our mind and we just keep ourselves from seeing things differently, which is so important. Things are never what they seem to us. There are a million different ways of seeing things, seeing people, seeing situations, and especially when it comes to different cultures. Now, in some cultures, there's what I like to call an entrance barrier to other people. This is, for instance, true to the German cultural cluster, which I'm very familiar with. People may not be used to engaging or having small talk with strangers, and that can make them seem kind of shut off and even hostile sometimes. However, I found, and that's also the feedback that I've received from others, that it's often in these countries where very profound and long-lasting friendships are made. Friendships with a more exclusive character, maybe. They just need to get to know you first before considering you their friend. So if you live in a culture like that, don't give up too quickly. And again, don't jump to conclusions. It's just a different way of approaching and of connecting. And then in other countries, again, you'll immediately feel welcome and connected. This is, for instance, true for Spain, where we currently live. It's easy to have just a friendly banter with a store clerk or just random people on the street sometimes. And you see smiling faces, and people will start talking to my kids, for instance, and compliment them on the street. They'll also intervene when someone's, just having a tantrum, and they'll actually help you out, which is so nice. So that definitely feels really good to the soul. On the other hand, I think it does not necessarily lead to closeness and intimacy. And remember, these are both key elements in combating loneliness. Remember, we talked about this in the last episode. So sometimes it can be even harder to build deep and more exclusive friendships in a generally open and welcoming culture. And I'm just sharing these both examples because I want you to see that not everything is what it seems. There are different ways of doing things, and we all have our preferences for sure. We all have our conditioning, like I said. But making friends and building a network is possible anywhere. We just have to get used to the local ways. So, bottom line, don't jump to any conclusions and try to stay curious and without judgment towards the local way of life. Now, when it comes to befriending expats versus locals, I get asked about that a lot. So, this will greatly depend on where you're based. If there is an expat community, you'll probably find it easier to access and become a part of it. Fellow expats and fellow diplomats are great because they're in the same boat as you. They're usually looking to make friends. They understand certain challenges you're facing, and they can be of great help. On the other hand, people may come and go, and you might have to say goodbye to some of the people really dear to you. And I've also noticed that sometimes staying exclusively in an international circle can keep you from truly getting to know and understand your host country and culture. I don't know if that's happened to you. Now, befriending locals, while it's definitely harder, also has clear benefits. It will help you to see a country and a culture through their eyes and understand it better, and possibly like and appreciate it more too. I think it can be really enriching to adopt certain local customs, to learn and maybe even master the local language, and to get to know a different way of life from the inside. So in my personal experience, my local friends have enriched my life and my experience in that country tremendously. They've also remained closer friends, I'd say, than my international ones, even after I moved away. And I was able to visit them because I knew where they were and I knew what that was like. So it just made it a little easier. Now, I'd love to know what your experience is with this. Where you live, do you have an expat community? Are you able to make local friendships? And which are the ones that you have chosen for yourself? And now let's dive into my top 7 favorite tips to connect, make friends, and build a network abroad. So, number 1, be introduced. And this has worked for me every time, especially post-university. I mean, obviously, when you're studying, it's so much easier to meet others, and people are more open and flexible. But afterwards, this is the way to go, in my opinion. So, the way it works. You first get a friend or an acquaintance to introduce you to people in your new country. And that can really grant you access to a community of potentially like-minded people that will not just see you as a complete stranger, but as, oh, she's Zoe's friend, for instance. And thanks to that referral, there will be a greater sense of commitment, care, and responsibility towards you. They're also more likely to give you a chance because, after all, you have mutual friends and acquaintances, so you can't be all too strange. And so first, I suggest you brainstorm, who do you know that currently lives in your host country? Or do you know someone who's originally from that country? Or someone who used to live there? And if not, ask your friends if they know anyone from there. Then reach out to them. And if you really have a friend in common, this will be easy, and they'll gladly share their knowledge, tips, and connections in their country. But if you don't really know that person well, don't worry. Reach out anyway and let them know that you're moving to their country. Show some interest and curiosity and ask them for tips. And let me tell you, Everyone loves to give tips about things they know, and they'll certainly want you to have a really good experience in their country. So they will gladly give up all the information. And I wouldn't be surprised if they offer to meet you once you get there or put you in contact with others. Also, make sure to stay in touch with that person. Let them know when you arrive or send them a little note when you tried that restaurant or whichever spot that they recommended to you and thank them for it. It's always good to stay top of their mind so that when there's a happening or an event that will suit you, they'll think of you and invite you to it. And let me tell you, most of my best friendships abroad have been made possible thanks to a common link. Tip number 2 is bond over interests and commonalities. Shared interests are definitely a driving force when it comes to bonding and connecting and new friendships. For moms, their children may be a great vehicle to make friends, at kindergarten or school, at the playground. And this will, of course, not just benefit you, but also your children. Also, actively pursue your interests and hobbies. You're likely going to meet people you have things in common with there. So if you, for instance, are a golf player, make sure to head to the golf court as much as possible and try to connect with people there. Tip number 3 is join a club or an association. Remember how community creates a sense of belonging? And that is really key to feeling at home for many. So most cities have international women's and expat clubs, which are great platforms to meet a bunch of people. And if you can be an active member, even better. Collaborate, volunteer, help out, just make a little bit of an effort to connect with other members, especially in the beginning. You can also join a sports club, a book club, a religious group, ideally somewhere where you'll actually interact with the people and don't remain anonymous. So a gym, for instance, probably not a good place to actually interact with people and get in touch with them. And if you really can't find a community in your area, think about creating your own club. There are always people looking to connect with like-minded others. Find a common theme, such as being an expat, being a national of your home country, or a speaker of your native language, a hobby, an interest, a circumstance, whatever. I'm sure you'll be able to come up with a few ideas. Now, the next tip is be friendly to your neighbors and just generally the people around you. Now, of course, it's always important to be friendly to other people. And even if you are a little more reserved or introvert, I want to encourage you to go out of your way and just say hi, chat with your neighbors, greet the waiters and the clerks at your favorite coffee house, at your favorite restaurant or a store, smile at people you see around you. You see, this may not necessarily lead to friendships, but it will make you feel connected to the people around you. And when we feel connected, we are more open to connect with others and to attract, right? We always attract what we put out there. So I've, for instance, been approached by a woman who later became a friend of mine in a coffee shop that I frequented. So I just think an open and friendly attitude helps to be more approachable and more open to new connections. Tip number 5 is take a class. This is not only a great way to meet people with a shared interest, it also gives you something meaningful and gratifying to do. There's always something new that you can learn or a skill that you could master. So just think about what could that be for you. Tip number 6, volunteering or offering help. And this is a great tip for introverts who have a harder time reaching out to people. Try offering your help to someone at your kid's school, maybe at a club you've joined, a charitable organization, or maybe you can teach someone your native language or a skill of yours. There's always someone that you can help, and it'll make them feel good, it'll make you feel good, and it will make you both feel connected. And now tip number 7 is online connections. So I've bonded with some great people online, and I would certainly call some of them my friends. However, I don't think online connections can really substitute physical ones, and I guess I kind of changed my mind about this during the COVID pandemic. While it's great to connect and engage online, it can be so enriching, and I know that firsthand. But I'd also want to encourage you to make in-person meetings and local friendships a priority, especially when you already struggle with a feeling of loneliness abroad. But still, online connections can be a great addition to physical encounters, and they can even lead to them. Alright, so these are my top 7 favorite tips to making friends and building a network abroad. Let me know if they were helpful to you, if they were inspiring to you. And my wish for you is that your time abroad may be filled with meaningful connections and an ever-growing network. And just remember and know that this is possible wherever you are. It may require a little more effort. It may require a little bit more thinking outside the box, but it is possible. And so I'd also love to know what's helped you to meet and befriend people abroad. So if you can share that with the community, please do, because we all need each other's support. We're all in the same boat, and your tips will be truly valued. I can't wait to be back with you 1 week from now, and starting next week, I'll bring a series of episodes to you regarding your financial independence and your professional development and possibilities abroad and despite relocations. I'll have some great guest experts come on the show to teach you about finding your purpose, career change, entrepreneurship, creating a killer CV despite those gaps and incoherences expat wives often have on their resumes, and much, much more. So there's a bunch of great content waiting to be shared with you that you don't want to miss out on. So just in case you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform, iTunes, Spotify, whatever you choose. I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and I look forward to being with you next week again. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to share this episode with your expat besties and show me some love in the reviews. Want more juicy content designed for expat wives? Then head over to my website, www.camillaquintana.com, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook at coach.camillaquintana.